Syracuse University is remembering the lives of the victims of Pan Am 103.
We give you a sneak peek into classes offered for students to feel safer.
And a Newhouse alum returned to campus to give advice to current students.
All that plus your weather and orange sports coming up on this edition of Mornings on the Hill.
Good morning, I'm Sharif King. Thanks for joining us on Mornings on the Hill.
And I'm Shoshana Stahl. It's Wednesday, October 23rd. Here's today's top story. Remembrance Week is in full swing at Syracuse University.
Our Morgan Trow is live in studio with more.
Thanks, Shoshana and Sharif. On December 21st, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 left the London Heathrow Airport and headed for New York City. At 7:03 that evening, the plane exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland. All 259 passengers on board were killed, along with 11 residents of the small Scottish town. The flight carried 35 students studying through the Syracuse University Abroad program. Each year, 35 seniors are chosen to represent the 35 SU victims. This year, I was chosen to represent Amy Elizabeth Shapiro, a Newhouse photojournalism student who wanted to work for the National Geographic. This year's Remembrance Week started October 20th and goes until the evening of October 27th. The scholars plan Remembrance Week by coming up with events and ways to honor the victims. It kicked off with the candlelight vigil last Sunday. Some other events that already happened were ribbon tying in the Orange Grove, a panel on terrorism in the digital age, and sitting in solidarity. This was an event where the scholars sit in the chairs in the formation of their victims' seats on the plane. The annual rose-laying ceremony will be held at the Place of Remembrance, located in front of the Hall of Languages. The ceremony also honors 2002 and 2003 Lockerbie scholar Andrew McClune, who died while studying at Syracuse. For more information regarding the upcoming events, you can visit the Scholars Facebook page at Syracuse University Pan Am 103 Remembrance or at SU Remembrance on Instagram and Twitter. For Mornings on the Hill, I'm Morgan Trow.
Thanks, Morgan.
Our Jillian Andrews is live in studio this morning with one of the Remembrance Scholars to tell us more about what it means to be a scholar.
Thanks, guys. I'm joined this morning with Remembrance Scholar Galen Smith. So, Galen, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to start off by asking, who are you representing?
So this year I'm representing Keisha Whedon. She was a social work major from the Bronx. She was 20 years old and she was studying abroad in London as a younger student, and I studied abroad in London last year, so it was a really nice connection for me.
Great. And so when you found out you'd be selected as one of these scholars, what was going through your head? This is a huge honor.
Yeah, it was a really huge honor and it was super big and super important. Unfortunately for me, I had two friends on the selection committee last year who were a little let's say liberal with their hints about me having been selected. And so I kind of had a feeling, but of course you never know. I'm like, maybe they were just being nice, maybe they were lying. And so of course when I got the email, I was actually in CVS. I was heading to class, but I had to go to CVS because I needed, I don't know, like bath soap or something, I don't know. And I saw the email and I was like, oh really? Oh really? Like that's my name, like that's me, like, oh. And I was like, wait, Galen, you already knew that. But of course, still super excited, completely forgot that I already knew, but just super excited, super honored, super humbled to be chosen and just ready to do the work.
And so you mentioned the connection about you both studying in London. Is there anything else that you found through your studying of this individual that you can relate to?
Yeah. So one of the things that was super interesting and important to me was noting that in the 35 students, there were only 2 Black women who were studying abroad that year through the program. And for me, as a young Black girl, knowing there's a lot of challenges with getting Black and brown students to study abroad and sort of between cultural expectations and finances and all of these things. And I certainly have the kind of family that was like, you don't know anybody in London. What are you going to do in London? And so I think that that was super important to me to represent a Black woman. Other things, Keisha had a really beautiful relationship with God and beautiful relationship with her family. And those are 2 things that are super important to me, and wanting to find a scholar that I not only connected with as a Black woman, but who had that strong sense of faith and family was really important to me.
All right, and so this is also a huge honor and a huge responsibility. How does that feel?
It's heavy, I think. As a Remembrance Scholar, we are given an opportunity that not many seniors get to have. It's 35 seniors every year. We're only the 31st cohort. And so it's an experience that not many people understand, that not many people can sort of walk you through. Of course, my friends are super supportive and they're like, I see that you need things, but they don't really understand how to necessarily be there for me. I think it's an incredible honor. I think it's a huge responsibility. 31 years later, we're sort of in the act forward stage of the look back, act forward of the motto. And now it's how do we as 35 students continue to strengthen the Orange community and make it more inclusive for all that it serves.
Okay, that's wonderful. And then I have one more last question for you. What is the best part of all of this and this whole week and everything you're going through?
I think the best part of Remembrance is learning how to treat our 35 not just as victims of terrorism, but as individuals who had passions, who had creative goals, who had ambitions. My favorite event that I helped to plan as well is Celebration of Life, and so that event seeks to honor the creative and artistic talents of the 35, and so I'm super excited for those performances. I will be performing as well, and so I'm just excited to sort of do something that is a little bit more uplifting and a little bit more creative and not just talking about the terror and the trauma.
All right, wonderful. We can't wait to see you do that. So that's all. Back to you guys.
As crime rates increase, more people are taking matters into their own hands. Alexandra Jennerjohn shows us how.
After several security emails were sent out to students last week, I looked into one of the ways they can feel safer on our campus.
I'm a survivor of domestic violence.
Jane Warden teaches self-defense classes to women all across Syracuse. October is Dating Violence Awareness Month, and Warden says after being a victim herself, her focus now is teaching women to defend themselves and remain aware.
Intuition's like a superpower, right? If your body's telling you that something bad's about to happen, you need to pay attention to that and act appropriately as to whatever's developing in front of you.
Warden says an aggressor is afraid of three things: being caught, being identified, and being hurt.
So our focus is teaching women to fight from their greatest strength or their strongest body parts, and that happens to be the core and their hips and their upper legs.
Warden walked me through the 6 social self-defense tactics, and with each of those tactics, there are different hand motions. And she also had me practice what to do if an aggressor... Hey, back off!
It's nice, I guess, to know prior to a situation arising what you can do, opposed to, God forbid, getting scared and not being afraid to do it at all because you don't have that confidence.
Joe Shanley is a DPS officer at Syracuse University, and he's too taught self-defense classes. He offered tips you can use every day to make sure you're being smart and proactive. Things like always walk with a buddy, have lights surrounding bushes near your house, don't drink without a sober group member, and establish code words with your friends.
I'm not just an officer, I'm also a parent and a spouse, so I worry about my wife and kids. So any knowledge we can get out to our community and to the general public about how to safeguard themselves is always beneficial to all of us.
SU also provides classes here on campus, and they'll continue that into the spring, but they also provide a 1-credit class to help women in self-defense classes. For Mornings on the Hill, I'm Alexandra Jennerjohn.
New York State is the first in the nation to declare this week's PrEP Awareness Week. This week highlights medication available to prevent HIV and provides an additional $175,000 in funding. This week highlights medication available to prevent HIV and provides an additional $175,000 in funding. Pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, is a once-daily pill that reduces risk of contracting HIV by 99%. Executive Director of ACR Health, Will Murtaugh, says outreach for ages 15 to 24 is key.
That youth are the hardest to reach, really, because of the inability of their unstable lives to be, if they are HIV positive, to take the medicine. It is a challenge for them.
Governor Cuomo announces new data which shows the largest decrease in HIV diagnosis since the Ending in the Epidemic initiative began in 2014. 112,000 people are living with HIV in New York. The goal is to end the AIDS epidemic by the end of 2020. On this edition of Eat and Tell, we'll hear about convenience stores on campus.
Our reporter Dana Kasula will fill us in on some of the foods these convenience stores offer.
Go.
I'm live at West Campus Express with Keone. It's one of the many convenience stores on campus. Keone, hi, how are you? Good. could you tell me a little bit about all the locations where people could go to for these convenience stores?
Sure. Right now we're at West Campus Express. It's in the West Campus Apartments, right next to Starbucks, and it's one of the larger ones. We also have South Campus Express, which is in the Goldstein Student Center. It's also one of the larger ones. And then there's Foodworks, which is in the bottom of Graham Dining Center between Day and Flint Hall. And our smallest one is Foodworks 2. That's at Ernie Davis Hall, right across from the Exorcist.
So I know you brought in some products. Can you go over those products with me a little bit?
Sure. So we'll start with the absolutely most popular is the chips. This is one of the new ones we have. It's a buffalo popcorn. So you get your little spicy flavor and a little healthy, but we have so many different types of chips, and you can buy them at any convenience stores. If you want another healthier alternative, we're now selling these protein crisps. These are zesty guacamole. I heard they're really wonderful.
And then a little bit on ones for even like lunchtime if you just want to grab a little bit of a lunch to go.
So this is like the grown-up Lunchable. It's got cheese and salami and some crackers. It's also nice if you're having a night out with your girlfriends. Okay.
These were really cool. So these, can you go?
Pickled vegetables. So 20 calories. A very good, easy snack. And then we have everybody's favorite,
the cookies.
Cookies. I mean, how can you go wrong with that, right?
I think I like the other ones because when I get bored, I feel like I'm just snacking all the time.
Exactly.
So it's nice to have that
This is a
healthy
treat,
little
right?
maybe one or two of those.
Yeah. So one more thing is, if you want, I know you pull out and you want your healthy breakfast, we have overnight oats. So you can do these the night before in your refrigerator, or if you're in a rush, you can do it in your mind.
Perfect. If you want to find a list of all the store locations, head to foodservice.edu. This was Eat and Tell. Reporting live, I'm Jada Sulo for Mornings on the Hill.
It was rainy all day yesterday, but will it stick around? Weather anchor Cheyenne Nobrega is live out on University Ave to tell us what to expect. Cheyenne?
Hey guys, I have some great news for everybody. It is the perfect fall day. If you notice behind me, the sun is shining through the trees and there are clear skies all around. It is 52 degrees with a high of 57, so temperatures are only going to go up from here. There's also a 0% chance of rain, so it's the perfect opportunity for everyone to go out there and hang out with your friends and do all those fun fall activities you haven't had the chance to do yet. There is a with that said, there is a 0% chance of rain, so you can leave those umbrellas and rain jackets at home. It is a little chilly outside though, with that said, so I would definitely either layer or wear a light jacket because you never know when you're gonna need that. Make sure to stay tuned for later on the show with my full weather forecast. Back to you guys in the studio.
Coming up here on Mornings on the Hill, you can find out who will receive the most honorable award on campus. The 2019 University Scholar Award recipient will also take on a new role on the field.
Also coming up, ABC reporter Marcus Solis spoke with Syracuse students last night. Stay with us for those stories and much more here on Mornings on the Hill.
Welcome back to Mornings on the Hill. A popular spot for bird watching is in Mexico. He's eroding and falling into Lake Ontario. Our Peoples is live in studio to tell us how the erosion is causing more than just physical damage.
An ESF graduate student and president of non-for-profit has found herself in a bit of a clash with landowners on Lake Ontario as erosion is damaging properties.
This water may seem relatively calm on its surface, but the erosion is generating turbulence within the neighborhood. Ed Hartwell lives just minutes from the Derby Hill Observatory, where he says the lack of erosion protection is threatening the homes of its neighbors.
Just knowing that eventually you're probably going to lose everything would be the worst part of it.
The erosion along the scenic overlook is seeping onto the properties next door. Neighbors of the overlook have done what they can to protect their own shorelines, but they say that won't matter if nothing is done to stop the overlook from eroding. It appears nothing will be done to stop the erosion unless a natural solution can be found, but Hartwell believes that ship has sailed.
I don't know there's much they can do naturally anymore at this point.
Although some homeowners are upset about damage to their own property, conservationists don't want to be too quick to rush into any decisions that may further harm the environment.
ESF graduate student and president of the Onondaga Audubon Society, Allison Kochek, says although residents are worried about their property, conservation is the Overlook's main concern.
Our priority as an Audubon is to protect our land in a way that it will be good for those wildlife and birds that use it.
Kochek believes right now there's not a great solution to fix the damage that the erosion has caused and will continue to cause.
Sometimes rethinking before you buy out on these lakes of what is going to happen over the next 20 years is something that I think we really all need to start doing, because I don't think we're going to be able to protect everywhere as much as we want to.
The Onondaga Audubon Society estimates that they lose about 10 inches of land every year and believes it will be years until there's an immediate problem. In the meantime, neighbors of the Overlook will continue to try and protect their land the best they can. Alex Peebles, Mornings on the Hill.
Basketball season is back, but the players are being recognized for what they're doing off the court.
Our reporter Michelle Knezovic will also tell us how one former basketball star will be making his way back to campus. Michelle?
Basketball season is here, and Syracuse Athletics just announced what former player's jersey will be getting retired this year. A big ACC matchup against North Carolina this season will not only be a good night for the current Syracuse players, but also one former player. First-round draft pick John Wallace will have his jersey retired this year. At his time at Syracuse, he wore number 44, an iconic number at the school. It will also be a one-of-a-kind night in the Dome, an ACC matchup, a jersey retirement, and it will be also held on a leap day. So I guess you could say 1 in 4 years. John Wallace, a 4-year collegiate athlete, his decision was easy to play professional, but for other athletes, they have a different path, like one female athlete this year. After 4 years of playing a collegiate sport, most athletes will move on to the professional level or start their careers. Former All-ACC first-team Syracuse volleyball standout Santita Ibangwaze has chosen a different path.
Santita Atonya Ibangwaze. Receiving the 2019 University Scholar, the highest honor the university can offer. She still hasn't accomplished all she wanted. She wanted more on and off the field. Not only will she be pursuing a master's in bioengineering, but taking on another Division I sport, trading in the court for the pitch.
And so I was like, well, I'm at Syracuse for an additional year, and I played soccer for 7 years before I started volleyball, so I was like, let's try to go back. My soccer skills, I'm dusting them off a little bit, and they're getting back to where they were. I think give me like a couple more weeks, I think I'll be doing a lot better.
Santita Ibangwaze will be the newest addition to the women's soccer team after playing 4 years on the Syracuse volleyball team. Transitioning from middle blocker to goalie, the two positions require quick reactions, but how she reacts is what will change.
I differently, I have to lift the ball differently. Instead of just jumping up above the net, I also have to dive as well, and the ball comes a little bit harder.
Not only will she be adding this skill set to the team, but her experience and leadership to first-year head coach Nikki Adams.
Santita has been a great leader, not so much just on the field, but in the locker room, and that's where I need her. So me and her have actually established a pretty strong relationship where she can come in anytime and we work out the details, but it's been pretty special to have her.
Santita isn't the only student who is excelling off the court. The men's basketball team is as well. The Syracuse men's basketball team is doing more than shooting hoops this year. This past Sunday, they teamed up with the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Central New York for the annual Miss Orange Fan Luncheon. Our Cheyenne Nobrega has the story.
For the 28th year in a row, the men's basketball team and the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Central New York held the Miss Orange Luncheon. The event was created by Coach Boeheim and his wife Julie, with the hopes of raising money to grant wishes to kids with illnesses. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is a nonprofit organization that brings hope and joy to children's lives. The Central New York chapter has more than 150 kids eligible for a wish, although their budget for the year can only fund 69 of them. According to the CEO and president of Make-A-Wish Central New York, it is events like this that make wish granting possible.
It is a lesson in humility and gratitude to see all these people who not only love our basketball team, but who are willing to open their wallets to ensure that we can give hope to kids with critical illnesses.
The hundreds of women in attendance had the opportunity to shop at local vendors, take part in a silent auction, and meet the Syracuse men's basketball team. The athletes and their coaches signed posters, took pictures with fans, and participated in a player auction where the proceeds went to the foundation. In the player auction, people would bid money in order to have the athletes sit at their table for the duration of the event.
I have a 15-year-old daughter, so she's been coming with me for 3 or 4 years along with my other daughter, so it's really a cool opportunity for her to see the players and, see them up close and personal, get autographs and things like that, so it's fun.
The community event had a special surprise in store for one child. The Boeheims surprised a young girl on stage to grant her wish of going to Disney World. For Mornings on the Hill, I'm Cheyenne Nobrega.
Since the first event in 1991, the Miss Orange Luncheon has raised more than $1.2 million in support for local wishes. That's all for your sports wrap-up. Shoshana and Sharif, back to you guys.
Thanks, Michelle. Syracuse alum and broadcast reporter Marcus Solis spoke to students last night in an onstage conversation with journalism professor Simon Perez. Solis spoke about the current state of the media industry and what it's like working in New York City. Solis currently works in the #1 market at WABC TV and has been there for over 20 years. Following the lecture, Solis answered questions for students about how to keep a career in journalism. He expressed to students how important it is to be creative in your storytelling.
Voting season is approaching, and for the first time in New York State, voters can vote in person before Election Day. Voters who are registered in Onondaga County will be able to vote early at any of the 6 voting sites listed on nccnewsonline.com. FYI, if you vote during the early voting period, you are not eligible to vote on Election Day. The closest voting location to campus is Southwest Community Center, located at 401-425 South Ave, just 4 minutes away.
And still to come here on Mornings on the Hill, Cheyenne Nobrega has one last look at your weather.
Stay with us.
Welcome back to your weather update. Now, if we look at the current conditions, it's 52 degrees outside, and a 74% chance, and it's 74% of humidity. So not too bad outside. It's pretty nice. The sun is shining. There is a little bit of wind, so I do recommend people wearing layers and those little warm coats outside. And if we move on into the records of today, the high is 60 with a low of 54. The record actually was 84 degrees in 1979, so that's pretty hot for what we're expecting. In 1948, the record low was 24 degrees, which I'm sure a bunch of us are pretty excited that that's not today's temperatures. And moving on to our regional temps. So if you look, all the temperatures are pretty similar throughout the region of New York, Syracuse, Seneca Falls, Rochester, all in the 50s. If we head a little more down south, we'll get into the 40s. But for the most part, all of New York, central New York is experiencing pretty similar weathers, which is nice considering winter is coming. So we can all expect those cold temperatures later on in the year. And if you look at tomorrow's forecast, pretty similar to today. In the morning, we can expect 48. And as we move on to the day, it rises in the 50s. And again, in the late, it'll drop to 46. Although we do notice there's not a big chance of rain, which is very nice, considering earlier this week there's been a bunch of rain outside. So that's pretty good for everyone in Syracuse to expect. And if we move into our 5-day forecast, like I said, pretty similar temperatures for Wednesday and Thursday. Mostly it's in the 50s, and you'll notice on Friday it will dip into the 30s on the lows. There is a 50% chance of rain on Sunday, so you might want to get an umbrella ready for the weekend. And that is your weather forecast.
So Cheyenne, tell me, how long would you need the umbrella when you're out on the weekend?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like the weather is always changing. Yesterday it was kind of,
I was in class and all of a sudden you just see rain. So I'm like, I didn't even bring a rain jacket or umbrella. So I always say have one on hand just in case, but you can never be too safe with that.
I'm never ready. I'm never ready for this weather.
Syracuse doesn't prepare you for anything.
That's what I've been told. The weather is just, I was expecting it to be way colder this month, but we've been pretty lucky. The sun is out. Oh, will it?
It'll get there.
How cold?
You're thinking right now you're wishing it was going to be a little colder, but just wait until it's blizzarding outside and you don't want to leave for class.
Is it bad that I'm kind of excited for that?
No, it's not. We all are preparing.
Yes.
Well, that's going to do it for this Wednesday here on Mornings on the Hill. I'm Sharif King. Be sure to follow us on social media.
And I'm Shoshana Stahl. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday live at 10 a.m.